Okay, good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Nauset Regional School Committee. It is Thursday, May 21st at 6:03. We are in the Nauset room at the Nauset Middle School. As required by the open meeting law, the district is videotaping this meeting. Anyone else intending to video or audio tape the meeting must inform the okay, we have a quorum. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and Catherine is online. Okay, so the first item on our agenda is executive session. Do I have a motion?
So move.
We have to state the reason, was there the motion?
Yeah.
I move that we enter executive session, where is it? For the purpose to discuss contract negotiations or strategies with respect to flex time MOA and the custodian contract.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. Catherine, how do you vote?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Maura?
Yes.
I vote yes. Katie?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
All right, moving into executive session. Oops. Back in open session. Agenda changes. I don't have any. Okay. So we are going to move to public comment. Public comment is permitted, for up to 3 minutes per speaker on matters within the committee's authority. Under Massachusetts open meeting law, the committee cannot deliberate on or respond to topics not included on this agenda, but may schedule the matter for a future meeting. Do we have anybody here for public comment? No problem. We get all these people back that we threw out.
I'm trying to get it up. I just texted, sent a message to Peter. Oh, yes, somebody coming.
Okay, any public comment? All right, seeing none, we will move on. Consent agenda, approved grants, gifts, grants, and fundraising. We have one grant to approve. It is a grant from the Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Association. A $10,000 grant to, it's the first time I've ever said this, public or private, to purchase a slab scissor lift with a 32-foot working height for the middle school. There was a middle school, Barry, you're right. Okay, this is great.
We'll get free comments.
I get it.
That might not be for the air conditioner.
Yeah. So, obviously, well, thank you, MIAA. This is fantastic. I know this would be for like the stage, right?
The stage, the lighting, I think it's in their entire. Well, this is a yearly grant though. This is our insurance company, and we can apply yearly for it. They also gave us the school dude or whatever they use, software package. I mean, yearly we have the potential to get a $10,000 grant from them every year.
Wow. Nice. Okay.
Only for the $500,000 we pay every year.
All right, are there any questions? And we also have the minutes of April 9th. If there are no questions.
Can I make a quick comment on the minutes?
Sure.
And this is not at all a criticism, but I think the minutes, maybe we're using AI, which I'm not opposed to, but there's a lot of spacing, spelling, incomplete sentences, run-on sentences, and I think because we're here for education, I think it'd be good to clean that up a little bit going forward. And it's hard to, I found it hard to read when it's sort of like that, so other people may as well. So if we can maybe use it and then clean it afterwards or something like that, it would be good. And I will also say that I hate taking minutes, so this is not at all a criticism of the minutes in general, just if we can sort of make it more readable going forward, I would appreciate it.
Yeah,
Right, really good.
noted. Anything else? All right, so, I would then entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second, yeah, that's the question. This also includes the field trip request. Oh, it doesn't. Okay.
All right, no, this is the grant and the minutes.
Okay.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Catherine, how do you vote?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Katie?
Yeah.
I vote yes. Maura?
Yes.
Sarah? Yes. Gary?
Yes.
Yes.
Chris? Forgot your name, Chris. All right, the consent agenda has been approved. Turn the page already. All right, so now we're gonna go to our priority business. We're gonna vote on our items from executive session. The first is the memo of understanding, memorandum of agreement to start the flex time program at the high school. I would like a vote to approve the MOA with the following changes that I wrote down and change the district to district administration, clarify the date of signing, and change the NRSC to the committee.
So moved. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any more discussion? All right, we'll go to approve it. Let's start. Chris?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Sarah? Yes. Maura?
Yes.
I say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Katie?
Yeah.
Catherine?
Yes.
All right, done. All right, oh yeah, you got your MO.
Thank you.
All right, then we go to the custodian contract. This is the contract between the Nauset Regional School Committee, the Brewster School Committee, and the Service Employees Union,
Yeah.
local 888. And I would entertain a motion to approve this 3-year contract.
So moved.
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded. Any?
Just, could we add, with the edit of deleting the title, in the title?
Second.
The second Brewster. Okay, so we have a motion with Carrie's amendment. Any discussion? All right, Catherine, where did you go?
I accidentally reset the meeting, I'm sorry, because people were having trouble getting in.
Okay. She'll be back. Chris, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Sarah? Yes. Laura?
Yes.
I vote yes. Katie?
Yes.
There she is.
Yes.
You good? There she is. You're back, Catherine.
Yeah. Yes.
Was that a yes for the MOU?
It was yes for the vote. Yes. I bumped off.
Okay, so our custodians have a new 3-year contract. Yes, all right, great, check. The 8th grade field trip. This is an overnight trip. That's why we're approving the field trip. The trip is to Nickerson State Park. It's great.
Excellent.
That they're
Good fun.
Yes,
Using local assets, it's great stuff.
I know.
A lot of gas.
No. Plenty of firewood this time of year.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, but it's not seasoned. Okay, are there any questions on this trip?
I'm going to approve this trip.
I just, okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? I just think that this is a real fun trip, 15 to 20 kids. Overnight, with the owls moving. Okay, Catherine, how do you vote?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Lauren?
Yes.
I vote yes.
Yes.
Guilty, done, Rick, okay, all right, field trip done, check. Okay, now we're moving on to number D, a discussion with the capital asset assessment methodology. So. As we start this, I just would like to note that you've got some reference, documents in the agenda packet. There were 4 documents that accompanied this. First is the memo from Pete Dahl, who is here with us tonight. Who is a select board member from Brewster. And that is actually forms the basis of why we are having this discussion. There's also a table of assessment comparisons for the last 6 years. There's a table of the assessment comparisons for this year, or the coming year, fiscal year 2027. And there is our budget, right, for this year. So you might want to keep those handy to refer to them along the way on this discussion. And I'd like to start it off by kind of giving some background, setting the stage so that we make sure that everybody in this room who's out there listening or who may tune in the future, so that we're all starting from the same page, so that we're all hearing the same thing and at the same time. Because this is a complex issue and it's a sensitive issue because it involves money. Anything that involves money and kids is a sensitive issue. So just so I kind of like to lay the foundation out here. So the issue at hand is that the language in Nauset's current regional agreement regarding the calculation and apportionment of capital costs is contrary to the methodology we use or have been using for as long as anybody can remember here. Specifically in our regional agreement, section 4, which is entitled Apportionment and Payment of Costs Incurred by the District. Subsection D, which I believe Mr. Dahl has quoted in his memo, says that the payment of all capital costs in any fiscal year shall be apportioned among the member towns on the basis of their respective enrollments in the regional district schools on October 1st of the preceding fiscal year. So what does that mean? The cited regional agreement language would use what I'm calling, which I think is called in-district enrollment. Versus the foundation enrollment that we have traditionally used for all of our assessment calculations. So to clarify, the in-district enrollment counts only Nauset residents, so students who reside in one of our 4 towns that go to one of our 2 schools. So that would be in-district enrollment versus the foundation enrollment. The foundation enrollment counts the in-district enrollment and then adds students residing in one of our 4 towns that attend a charter school. In this case, I think the only charter schools are Sturgis and Lighthouse. Nauset resident students that attend other public schools through the state school choice program, as well as Nauset residents that attend special education collaboratives or other special education schools or settings. In other words, the foundation enrollment counts all Nauset residents that we as a district are responsible for, that we have in our budget. We have the charter school, the cost for the charter school, the choice, and everybody else. So that is the difference in the two numbers. And like any number, if they're different, when you put them in some kind of calculation, the answer could be different. So that's what happens here. So this came to our attention first on March 18th, when Rob Tobias, who is a member of the Brewster Finance Committee, first notified us of this language in section 4, subsection D in the regional agreement, and requested that we change the 2027 capital debt asset assessment using the in-district enrollment number instead of the foundation enrollment. I can't say I for one was very surprised because I didn't know that that's what the regional agreement said, but we checked the regional agreement. Mr. Tobias was correct. That's what it said. And as you probably all recall, we changed the 2027 budget. So this was brought to our attention on March 18th. We voted on our budget on March 19th with the change in this assessment. And if you look at the one table that you have here, you can see what that change by is different. So the table that compares the 2027 activations, you can see the percentages for each of the towns for our operating budget, and you can see, which uses the foundation enrollment, and you can see the percentages for each of our 4 towns for the capital debt budget, which uses the in-district enrollment. And then the bottom table shows the difference. So you've got, for each of the 4 towns, you've got the foundation enrollment, the district enrollment, and the difference. So Brewster had 514 in foundation enrollment, 411 in district enrollment, meaning that 103 Brewster residents went out of district, which lowered the percentage by 2.22. And then you can see the effect on Eastham, Orleans, and Wellfleet. So if everybody proportionately sent out the same number of students or the same proportion, it wouldn't make a difference of assessments. But if 1 town or 2 towns send out proportionately more than the others, then this assessment is going to change. And that's what happened. So that we did. And then some weeks later, on April 3rd, Superintendent Brand received a copy of a memo sent from Pete Dahl to the Brewster town manager, recommending that the town manager forward the memo to the superintendent, the Brewster Select Board, and the Brewster Finance Committee, and that there should be a plan to reimburse the town of Brewster for was termed an overassessment for the 3 years of 2024, 25, and 26. So we did it for 27. This was asking us to go back 3 years and come up with a plan to adjust the figures. So at that point, we did two things right away. We contacted Desi and we contacted our legal counsel. I was not on a phone call with Desi. Superintendent talked to them. You want to briefly summarize what?
Yeah, Bob was here tonight, Bob Dutch and I, all collectively had the call with the Department of Education to walk through this matter and, you know, that Bob can certainly add in, but in terms of, there wasn't any specific guidance provided or given to us, understanding the situation as was presented to them. Bob, you wanna add to
yeah, I mean, they recognized that there was an error in the process for calculating the, capital and debt. And express no opinion beyond that as to what obligation we have or don't have. You guys, that they don't have the capacity to dictate what we do. That was the decision. And they pretty much left it at that point.
Okay, so then we again, on the advice of the lawyer, did a little bit of more digging. We collected more data. She suggested that we go back and look at, first of all, look and see not only the effect on Brewster of this calculation, but all four towns, obviously. And then we go back and look at the last 6 years and just see what that looked like, just to have that data in front of us. And that you have, that's what Bob put together on the calculations of the difference between what the assessment would be using the in-district enrollment and what was voted at town meeting, which was the assessment calculated using the foundation enrollment. And then you can see the difference in the dollar figures for FY on all of the towns from FY 26 back to 21. So that's kind of been for your
So question,
information. Yeah.
so we're looking at the bottom of the sheet here, we see the breakdown of 6 years, 3 years, and 1 year. It has Brewster, Eastham, Orleans and Wellfleet, and then we have the dollar amounts to the right. Some are in parentheses, which would be, I assume, credits, we undercharge them. And the other ones are amounts that we overcharge, is that correct? Okay.
Just the other way around,
No, what's in
unless.
the C's, those folks were undercharged by that amount.
Right.
So then the question comes
Oh,
back,
undercharged, yes, okay.
so this process has been used.
Process has been used as far back as I could find any records. But according to the attorney, the statute of limitations on this was 6 years.
She said under some, if you consider the regional agreement a contract or, you know, she did say that there's, I mean, if there were an easy answer, if there were an obvious answer, we would have it and we wouldn't be going through this. But she said there are arguments on both sides and probably arguments on more than 2 sides. And so, depending on how you look at it. So that's why we were just looking to see, just for our own information, if we did it for 1 year, if we did it for 3 years, if we did it for 6 years, what it would be. So we also did try to go back and look for other stuff. Historical documents are, I mean, depends on how far you want to go back. But the foundation enrollment has been used in our budget calculations for as long as we can find records, which, is not going back 50 years, but, so,
But you would assume that there was transfer, meaning, if you change the finance person, that there was transfer, there were people still in the office. So that it was used, still being used, it was probably used prior, probably since the beginning.
right. So,
You don't have.
also, I will say that the calculations using the foundation budget, for all assessments, both the operating and the capital, are included in both versions of the draft restated regional agreement. And when I say both versions, I mean the version that our subcommittee worked on, with our lawyer, the draft version that we saw, that, that used the foundation enrollment, clearly used the foundation enrollment for both, for both, assessments. And the other draft restated agreement is what the towns, came up with and gave to our subcommittee. And they included the same language in that. So in both versions, in both the one that we created, crafted, and the ones that the towns came up with using their lawyers, they also used the foundation budget for both, operating and capital going forward. That it's, perhaps not relevant, but it's just a matter. The other thing that I will say that I did go back, to try to brush off my mind, and, Chris will probably remember, I'm sure he remembers when we went out, for the vote on the high school renovation project. When we went out to the voters, all of our debt service calculations that we did at that time, that were provided by our bond counsel, used foundation enrollment. So the bond counsel had big tables on like what our annual, debt would be, assuming a certain percentage, assuming a certain term, whether it was principal level debt, for all kinds of different calculations, and they all used, the foundation enrollment to, tell the voters, that this would be the impact
Their expenses.
on your town, on your tax bill. So all of that, we went out, were provided to the public. We used the foundation budget as a calculation. And then just one last thing that we did, the superintendent did communicate with all the town managers and let them know that we were beginning discussions of this tonight. So they are aware of it. So that's kind of the background. And kind of where this leaves us now, is kind of the questions before us is, or are, is any other further action needed? And if so, what is it? What do we do? Do we try to adjust the past assessments using in-district enrollment numbers? And that's a yes or a no. If it's yes, for what years? Do we do it for 2026 because the books are still open? Do we do it for the 3 years because that's what was requested? Do we do it for 6 years? Do we go back to when the region started? It's a matter of, what do we do and why? And then, no matter how many years that it is, how would we do it? Where would the funds come from? And, how would they be transferred? And for that, I just would say, if anybody has any other ideas, but we can only identify two sources of funds. One is that you get the so-called under-assessed towns to pay the so-called over-assessed towns. Or our only other source of money is E&D. So those are the two sources. So understanding that this is a complex issue, we're not necessarily looking for a vote tonight. I don't want to have anybody feel that we're forcing this issue. As I said, it's complex and it's sensitive. But we do need to have this discussion, get a sense of the committee, so that we can proceed further. Our lawyer advises us that any action that we take or propose to take needs to be worked out with, agreeable to, understood by all four towns. And the reason for that, and I think this is a good time to remind us, I know this is something that we on this committee know and keep in the front of our mind every time we sit down at this meeting. But it's a good time to remind everybody that we are a partnership. We work as a team and work here as a partnership. This is not one town's money. This is all towns' money, and all towns will be affected. And when everybody came together to form the region and sign a regional agreement, they formed a partnership, and a partnership has to work together. You know, I want us to be all together pulling the stagecoach. I don't look forward to being drawn and quartered here. So, we need to remember that we're one, and we've always said, what's good for an Orleans kid is good for an East Ham kid. It's good for the stagecoach, right? Probably, I don't know about that analogy, I may have to. But anyway, so that's where we are, folks.
So I have a question. One question is, and I'm sorry, I didn't do the research on this ahead of time. But what is the language in the statutory method in terms of capital assessment? Is it the same as?
If whatever is in the regional agreement, statutory method.
No, the statutory method comes from the state, right?
Right, but it doesn't tell you what enrollment figure to use.
It doesn't matter which method, so statutory or alternate method doesn't matter in this calculation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't have an impact because it's based on our regional agreement.
You're still using the enrollment figures. It's other components of the formula that are different in the alternative method versus the statutory.
So yeah, but when you use the statutory method, it's only the amount over the amount that the state says that the town is pay. It's not
beyond local contribution, yes.
Right, yeah, so beyond local contribution, so it's, but it's not on the entire assessment. And in the last 3 years, we've used the statutory method.
It doesn't make any difference on the calculation. The amount of the capital assessment is the same in the statutory method and the alternative method.
All right. And
It's just where it comes in that table with the populations that you see that's different.
So, and my other question is, have the other towns been, in conversation about this issue?
Not with me.
I don't believe it does. I do believe that there's been discussion, but I'm not certain about that.
I'm really interested in further discussion, needs to involve the other towns, because if it would seem that we didn't charge Brewster too much. We divvied the pie differently, and if it needs to be fixed, I think it needs to be fixed, considering the other towns overage. Or.
So they need to get the other towns to pay.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I
I think that had to be in the discussion.
So I will tell you that, our lawyer says that one of the arguments that will be made from the other side then is, had we known that's what, I'm not saying that people would do this, but I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. On the other side would be, had we known that that was what our assessment would be, we wouldn't have voted for it.
I see, okay, all right. Gotcha.
So they voted, they went to town meeting
Right.
and they voted for this number based on this that we gave them. And now we're coming back and saying, 2, 3, however many years later, no, actually, it needs to be more. And so you could say it, anybody could say it, well, if that's the case, then I wouldn't have voted for it.
Yeah.
Good. Or,
Okay, excuse me.
No, just building off of what Rick was saying. I don't know what the answer is with the other towns. I mean, being one of the towns that would potentially be asked to pay money, if that was one of the scenarios. I certainly wouldn't necessarily love that, but I do think it's important for us to get a sense of what the other towns are thinking. I think it would inform this conversation. I think it's important part of the conversation. So I wanted to build off of what Rick said in that regard.
So I think that, a couple things. You have a contract. I will talk to you. Sorry. Then I think we should go back as far as we can go back and get the correct numbers and see where it stands. I don't think if you take any arbitrary amount, we're gonna tick people off. If we've done this forever, I believe we've got budgets forever. When we could come up, then we could get a full picture of what this problem actually is and find a solution. I mean, I think, the problem is we just misassessed. We didn't assess correctly. I don't, were we at fault? I guess we were at fault, but we did it in wide open. It wasn't, it was wide open. Everyone got to see it. It wasn't like we were hiding, the process. We did it, with everyone's knowledge. So it was just something that was caught. So I think that if we have the budgets, we should take the time, go back, figure it out. I mean, if you do anything else, if you do a 6-year shot here, there's winners and losers. Well, but there's winners and losers because we've chosen 6, or there'll be winners and losers if we've chosen 8. We take as many as we can get. If we have them all, get them all. For as long as we've had debt, and then roll it out, figure out where we stand, and then you could come up with a solution of, well, we'll take the next 10 years and adjust assessments such that everyone will be made whole. So there isn't, until you know the scope of the problem, you can't come up with the scope of the solution. If it's $20,000, here and there, then you could fix it in a year. But if it's we're looking at 400,000, 300,000, I mean, you could spend over a period of time and still make everybody whole in the end.
if that's legal.
The attorneys say that it's the statute of limitations is 6 years though.
But I don't know, see, the trouble is, you're opening yourself up in for legal. I don't know if that's correct. Is that a contract? It is a regional agreement. It's not a regional contract.
An attorney you would assume is the best person to make that judgment.
I think that the object would be to try to correct the problem that we create. And I think that anything you do less than trying to correct the whole problem is gonna put you in legal jeopardy any way you look.
Okay.
I would just, I guess this is a question for the attorney or Desi, and maybe they mentioned this already, but has this happened elsewhere that we could take a similar situation? Like I know it's like very unique to our district, but if there's any other regional type of district that there was an over under assessment that we could maybe take some suggestions or best practices on how nobody has.
If there is, we haven't heard, I mean, there might be, but nobody at Desi knew about it. The lawyer,
Lawyer couldn't find any
Couldn't find
legal
any
precedent for it
yeah,
in what she was looking at.
yeah.
And then I guess another question would just be for that. Those underassessed that we would be asking to pay back. Is that even legal to do that? Do we know?
I don't think that we know. I for one, and this is, been dwelling on this for weeks. I for one, I mean, I can be convinced probably otherwise, but I really don't have an appetite for going back and asking the other towns to pay for it. I think there is an argument, as the lawyer said, that can be made that they'll just say, no, that's not, we wouldn't have voted for it that way. I find this is setting up, pitting neighbor against neighbor. And I appreciate going back, as you said, Chris, forever. If it's a mistake, then we go back and fix it as far as we can. However, it wasn't an intentional mistake. Nobody knew about this. The regional agreement has been in front of people's faces for the last 3 years, and nobody saw this. No, this wasn't intentional. Everybody operated in good faith. We went to the voters in good faith. They voted in good faith. And to go back now and say, because of a technicality, because this was never changed, we're now gonna go back and rearrange the pots of money. I just, there's something about it that just doesn't sit with me.
I just have one, in terms of your question, Katie, about other similar situations, I don't know, we don't know of the exact same scenario. Martha's Vineyard a little while ago had a scenario where there was an issue, but I think it was specific for one fiscal year. So not exactly the same, it doesn't sound like, but whether or not there's been other situations that mirror this one, that doesn't, Desi didn't know of those. And our attorney didn't know of something that mirrored this specific situation.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of a bottom line guy, I know that over 30 years that we calculated in good faith with the enrollment method. But the reality is that Brewster got overassessed. And the amount of money, it's a significant amount of money. I think some way, shape or form, we need to creatively find a way that we can do as best we can to make it whole within the parameters of all of the nuances. There's so many nuances that every time we turn over a rock, there's something else. I, in this scenario, one town paid more. And two towns paid less, um, I don't know what the workout is. I think they should be included in working through this process, whatever that process culminates in. I think they should share some of this because they gained from it and Brewster didn't, according to the regional agreement. We have some flexibility in 26. We were working through the numbers and I possibly that can be explored. The books in 25 for all towns and 24 are all closed. I don't think going back to 24 is feasible. The heavy debt hit when we borrowed the big money, for the bulk of the debt travel with the schools, and that was 25, 26, and 27. We've rectified 27. There may be possibilities of 26, depending on how everyone feels. And as far as E&D goes, we all know the demands we have on E&D. Our certified, you got the memo today, as I did, our E&D came in at $2 million, which was 400,000 less than we were anticipating. Just because of some nuances, whatever, but the reality is that isn't a fountain of money. It's not a money tree we can go shake, and it's our emergency fund. So to put undue hardship on that, say of taking 400,000 or however the 6 years works out, I think is a little over the top for us to swallow. I think that at the very least, the other towns that benefited should be in this discussion and understand the overall effects. But that's my opinion.
So, this obviously is a very complicated and worrisome discussion. I do have to go back and thank Robert Elias for bringing this to our attention. It's has been helpful, I think, to have him as part of our discussions all along, and another reason why having liaisons from different committees to be representative in our within our budgets and here at our meetings is helpful. But it does open a world of issues, and it's not just, as I look back at the scenarios, it's not just Brewster that was overcharged, there was Orleans as well. I mean, it's not, I don't know if that's true, and I guess I would like to see more of a forensic study, but also get some reality, some legal reality. I mean, we're lay people, except for the staff that are sitting here, with whatever skills we bring to this table. And I feel like this is well above what I'm able to offer. But I would like to hear from whether it's an attorney that specializes in this area, from finance folks that understand this whole realm, and hear some suggestions to get some opinions so that then we can also move forward. And what's the best solution for our problem?
I'm not clear what you want to hear. We have talked to the lawyer, we have talked, the finance people have been involved, so I don't negate your question, I just don't know what it is that you would expect to hear from them.
So I guess, do we understand fully that it's a 6-year look back and then, I mean, is that?
No,
Is that
she suggested 6 years because if you, and I don't want to put words in her mouth, you were there, that if you look at the regional agreement as a contract. That would be the statute of limitations would be 6 years.
That's why because we had talked about how far back would we look, do we need to look? She said, because the regional agreement is effectively a contract, the 6 years is the statute of limitations. Nobody has a claim to anything beyond that 6 years,
Okay.
was what she explained. I just want to add one factual piece of information as a resource, I guess. You talked about the possibility of using E&D. Keep in mind that E&D is put against an expense, whether it's capital or operating expense, in the same formula that that the regional assessments are calculated. So Brewster is still gonna pay 41% of the amount, whatever the percentage is for capital, of the amount that they'd be getting back. And similarly, the same for the other towns as it comes out of E&D. Granted, E&D is on our side of the village here, but it's their money over there. As a result of assessments. And so it has gone in. So keep that in mind as you make that decision.
Yeah. Thank you for that, because that's exactly where my mind was going, was like, this is not money gathered by some big corporation to pay the CEO. This is money that the towns have provided to us to meet expenses. If we have more expenses, they have to provide more money. I mean, it's, yeah.
So, any idea how far back we could go as far as, I mean, the point is, this is a problem. Can we make this problem?
I mean, I have access to records on the computer from previous finance director going back, I think, to 2014. I mean, I look back, if you look at the data that I've provided you, you can see that the further back we go, the lower the impact is, because your significant capital projects were the new high school, which was 3 years ago. And then you had middle school project, and prior to that, it was just the capital assessments that also only began in a formula way, the 2% increase every year.
We had roof and windows, we did do roof and windows at the high school, we did do roof at the middle school. So put 3 million, 6 million in that ballpark.
Right.
10 million, I think, for the roof windows.
Which in the context of all of this are pretty small amounts of percentages of what we're talking about. The significant differences occurred with the new high school project. So looking back 20 years, 25 years is not gonna make a big difference to any community in any way. I mean,
And I think based on that, if there is a 6-year look back, and is that as far as we go? And then the other question was, once the budgets are closed, does that make a difference for whether either repayments or asking for payments is impossible for those years? I would like clarification on that. But I think the other conversation I had.
I'm sorry.
Well, so someone said that.
what she's asking is if you're looking at, if the books are closed for 24 and 25, could we go back to the towns for money from 24 and 25?
Exactly, thank you.
And the answer is no, because they can't pay bills from previous 1 year back, they can pay a bill beyond that.
So that kind of narrows the window a little bit of how do we resolve this? And how many years do we need to look at in order to resolve this? And that's where I feel like we need the answers, from the professionals. That will
Again,
get
Carrie,
us-
I don't know what the question is.
Well, I guess the question is, if we overlay only have a 6-year look back as one. The other one is that we can't use money on budgets or books that were closed. And where are we in that? From previous to 2025, 26?
$20 is storage.
So 25. So what does that leave us from FY 25 to 26? Because we just corrected in 27. So 25 and 26, what does that leave us in terms of resolution?
Yes.
For all the towns, at least taking them away.
The question is, yes, I agree. The question would be, how would we do it? But I think the how comes after the, what are we doing and why are we doing it? And so, you know, that we have to justify in our minds, it's 1 year, it's 0 years, it's 6 years or whatever, and then figure out how to do it. Rather than, yeah, you know, putting a square peg in the round. But
Is it only regional money that's available for us to use for this? Would it not be town money? Like, isn't there free cash in different?
well, if the other towns had to cough up money, I guess they would have to figure out where to get
Because
it.
that kind of takes the percent that Brewster's already paid into it out of the equation, and if it's coming from a hat that's outside of what's been calculated by the region. Right?
If the towns are going to agree.
No, I agree, I mean, there's the big if, but, and
So in the scenarios that, can't remember the page that it's on, but the scenarios, let's look at the 2026 1 year only. Are the totals there listed for Brewster, Eastham, Orleans and Wellfleet? Are those totals accurate
Yeah.
for not the foundation numbers, but for the total enrollments?
Yeah. Those are the
The
correct.
real results,
Those
those
are
are
the
correct
correct
numbers.
Yes.
Okay, good. I would like to see, because you're saying we can only go back to 26, 25 and 26.
So 26 Red Lake is still open.
Okay,
If we're going back to 25, the towns would have, any 25 and beyond, the towns would have to take it out of free cash.
I see.
26, we're still in, so they would simply, you know, they would have to find it somewhere else within their budget.
So maybe that's where we start. We start with looking at 26, but we start with looking at that, not just amongst us, but with the 4 towns. Because I think it needs to be a discussion.
Which is what I said at the beginning, is that this has to be worked out for the 4 towns, but, right.
And that's the first step. I don't know if we're able at this moment in time to make any other decisions until that happens.
I mean, just on that note, you brought up earlier, it's a community, and we're a community, is, you know, so. But what we are now pushing on people is that, no, we have a contract though, and by this contract, Brewster gets screwed because hang on, let me just finish, because we misassess for years. So I think the first step is to bring the community together, meaning bring the other towns together. It would appear that legally we cannot, since their books are closed, we cannot require them to make payments from previous years that they were misassessed. But Brewster shouldn't be screwed in this process, so there should be some community of agreement. We've come up with the numbers to know that there was a $400,000 event in which Brewster paid extra, at least in the 6-year window that we're looking at, and they should come up with a solution, because we're not gonna be able to force it on them, but if we're then gonna say, well, it's a business thing, so we can only go back to 26 and that's all we can do. I hate to say it, if I was Brewster, I don't know that I would be satisfied with that, but it isn't really us I mean, it is a community, there are 4 towns involved, and there are 4 towns that have had list numbers. The agreement's gonna have to come from them, it's not gonna come from us. And I'm sorry, back to Z and D. I don't think there's any standard by which we pay money out. If it's gonna be offset, it'll be offset in assessments or whatever. It's not coming from E and D because that's our ongoing operating. It doesn't make any sense to be making past debts whole off of our current operating money. It doesn't make any sense.
I don't believe we can use it like that.
As part of, yeah, I will reiterate, I think we need to bring the other towns in and get their sense publicly for what they're thinking too. I also would love to get a sense for, even though we're not to the how yet, in my mind, it's important to know how the town would even do that. Would they have to go back to the voter? Like, those are all very important pieces that we need to answer as part of this discussion. And I'll also say that we've been doing this, using this method for, we don't know how many years, but a lot. I don't think this needs to happen quickly. And I think we need to answer all the questions that we have, that the town representatives have, before we come to any resolution. So I think asking all the right questions, getting the answers that will help us make a decision, the town make a decision is extremely important at this point.
Town meetings would have to pass it. They can't spend money. They can't spend money unless it's in their budget.
So that's
It would
something
have
we
to
have
be a budget item that, yes, we're gonna pay this increased assessment.
because then there's a cost to that, each town meeting first. So there's a lot of pieces that we need to lay out exactly the information that we need to collect.
I think there's a more to chair that, that's the way, the next step, that we don't have the finish line in place yet, but that's certainly the next step. Because I think for me anyway, sometimes I don't even know the questions to ask when you're in this kind of situation. So I would like to, propose that, I don't wanna make a motion, but I would like to see that's the next step.
Well,
To recommend that that's the step.
yes, this is what the lawyers said. This is her suggestion that we meet with 4 towns because the 4 towns have to agree on this. And that we have a point person to do this. We're gonna do that this kind of meeting. So she suggested that if we don't have to vote on this, but we can, if people feel better, that we instruct the superintendent to be our point of contact with the 4 towns on the matter of this assessment.
The thing I would add is that I completely agree with what you said about the partnership. I think it's really important that we also ask the 4 towns to keep in mind the kids, because we would never want we would never ask or ever want in schools to be any division against the 4 towns.
Yeah.
Because if the towns are struggling and it trickles down to the children, then the absolute worst case scenario in my mind, that would be something I would just add in the meeting.
Yeah, this, as I said, is gonna be very sensitive because in my mind, there are a lot of arguments about not using the in-district enrollment for these kinds of assessments. And so the fact that it was never changed, we've got it in the regional agreement and we've got it there, but we know that nobody has proposed that it stay there for the next regional agreement. And there's a reason for that. Because the people the towns that get hurt the most are those that keep more of their kids in district rather than sending them out of district. And we want to keep our kids in district. So the towns that kind of are doing what they want to do, keeping them in district, are being penalized by this. And I think that's why it's going to change. In the meantime, we have the problem, and we have to deal with it. But it's probably a good lesson learned on why we pay more attention to changing the regional agreement.
I'm suggesting
more timely basis.
it's location. I mean, the reason Brewster has more kids that go to other schools is because of where that sits
Right.
in physical location. It's just simpler for kids to get other places, so they have a higher number.
If I may, it is also the case that a child who lives within the district, who goes outside the district for school, could come back tomorrow. And that building would need to be there for that child. So I mean, using foundation enrollment for the whole thing just makes much more sense.
I mean, we didn't build an apartment building up there and renting out,
Right.
space. If you wanna come in this year, it's fine. No, it's permanent housing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Karen,
Judy, I agree with, to direct the superintendent to reach out to as the person of contact, to reach out and begin discussions with the 4 towns. I would also like to add, under advisement or with the advisement of our attorney and a finance person familiar with, well, for the superintendent, familiar with.
my guess
this
is he
kind of
doesn't go anyplace.
No, I know, but I think it's important that he has a team, and, so it's important to make that public.
But also suggest that those meetings might want to be public. Just because if you, I don't know why you would negotiate a contract, I mean, I don't
It's not negotiable.
know, behind closed doors or whatever. No, I think that
Well, let's
the
just,
public, it should be a public discussion. I mean, it's gonna be paid for by the town. It's not a.
we'll talk to Nancy. All right, anything else? All right. Moving on to number E. Pre-K program.
Thank you. In you recall that we had, discussion last time, we had some discussion around the pre-K program. I'll call it the district's pre-K program because it really is. And at the last discussion, there were a couple of things as takeaways. One, a request by members to come back with a little bit more insight in terms of what the current, sort of snapshot is in the program relative to staffing and numbers. But also equally important, there was the discussion, of course, around the staffing model, staffing proposal, and obviously you met with some public comments and some discussion from community members around the program and concerns around whether or not to move forward fiscal year 27 around that. So a lot of thought, a lot of time has gone into this collectively, and I wanted to, I of course want to draw your attention to the memo that's in your packet. Matt Kravitz is also here, you can see in the room, who's this program ultimately falls under his authority, his department. So certainly if there are questions, Matt's here to take those as well too. But just as I think a friendly reminder and from a context standpoint, from all accounts, the staffing model within this program has remained relatively stable or consistent and just rolled over from one year to the next. Somewhat indifferent, and I don't mean that as a criticism, but somewhat indifferent to the actual number of students in the program. And that's fine. The place that we got was through this reclassification that happened, and the change in the not a change in the funding, but the change in terms of exactly how these expenses are passed down to the elementary districts. There was certainly quickly, as we started the budget process this year, some concern around the overall staffing and very tight fiscal budgets. Hence, the proposal that Matt brought forward to myself, and I thought seemed reasonable to adjust that staffing accordingly with a reduction to. Based upon, since that point in time, based upon a couple of different considerations, I don't think that now was the exact time to make that change. One, as you know, and the other committees know, there's a commitment that I think we have to take a close look at program review, if you will, around that program and what we want the future to look like. And what we think staffing numbers are appropriate that can help sustain the wonderful programming that's in place there. So that's number one. That program review is gonna start soon, but it's certainly not completed. Number two, in meeting with the staff, they shared their concerns around how can they operate the same way? What could that mean from a student, service standpoint, a student safety standpoint? And so, that is certainly hard to ignore. And so all of that being said, I do think, and I appreciate the comments by, Chris, yourself, or maybe some others I forget here. And others have suggested this is, maybe this is the time right now, and maybe just holding steady on the staffing model until next fiscal year. And the long and short, I think that does make sense. And so, reversing, I guess, that proposal that was previously shared, holding everything as it is right now, conduct that program review and see where we go from there. I will though, I do want to point out though, as I do in the memo, that from a fiscal standpoint, because of the structure, is a little challenging. Our elementary budgets are, many of them, were pretty tight going into fiscal year 27 through rising special education costs. That held true for most, not all, but most of them. And so, this change I recognize comes late. It comes late after the budgets have been, put into place. And so, it's a proposal, and I recognize there's a clear intersection with this proposal, with this committee that sits right here. And I know that may seem at somewhat odds in terms of the pre-K program, whose auspices does it fall under, or authorities it fall under. So I want to acknowledge that, but bring forth that it's an idea, it's a proposal, and it's one that's fiscal, and it does fall to your authority, so I can't make any assumptions about any of this, but the proposal here is to utilize as one time only, and one time meaning for next fiscal year only, a portion of the funds that the region received in what's called extraordinary relief. Matt can talk a little bit more to this if you'd like. Thanks, Matt, you're gonna come forward, but I think everyone knows we received circuit breaker. You as a school committee or school district received circuit breaker, so to other districts in the Nauset region. Circuit breaker is one thing, but there's an additional revenue fund from the Department of Education that's called extraordinary relief. It is related to special education, and it's for more extraordinary costs for special education related services than what was anticipated. So it's not a revenue source that can be budgeted. The amount that the district received, the region, to be clear, the region received in this extraordinary relief is just shy of $300,000 this fiscal year. Matt, could you give some greater context than I just did in terms of what exactly?
Certainly, so extraordinary relief is for when you get sudden increase in costs that were completely unforeseen, and the threshold is 25% more than the prior year. So our circuit breaker is annual. So again, we have that threshold of $53,000, we get reimbursed 75 cents on the dollar approximately over that. Most of those costs are budgeted and known well in advance, so we can anticipate circuit breaker reimbursement. However, extraordinary relief, in this case, the region had to, for the very high costs, come in August. And because of that, we went over the 25% increase in cost in special education, which then allowed us to go for extraordinary relief. My understanding of extraordinary relief is that it's not a clear-cut formula that every district can anticipate what they're going to get. The state gets a certain fund of money, and depending upon what districts file and then divvy up. So it's very difficult to estimate with any accuracy if we're eligible for how much we would get. So in this case, we did get approximately $300,000 in reimbursement.
So it's not that it's found money or bogus money, however you want to characterize it. It's just, it is an amount that we did not anticipate, that we did not budget for, which is a good thing, obviously. And certainly, we can use it wisely going forward for next year. But as I've tried to point out here, that given this circumstance, the situation regarding the pre-K program, we're looking for how could we reasonably offset this cost or pay for this. This is one idea that emerged. So to use a portion of that extraordinary relief, of which there still would be 2/3 approximately left, that would certainly benefit the region. So again, I recognize it's not clean, it's not neat and necessarily aligned with the original intent to not offset, probably the wrong word, but to redirect these costs to the elementary districts, but there's a bit of a tension here trying to balance all of this. So I'll pause there. Certainly welcome questions, comments, criticism, feedback.
Questions, comments, criticism? Criticism, oh, comments, well, I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, I walked away from the last meeting feeling pretty uneasy, and my uneasiness was based on what I heard being said. What was being said was that people were concerned about the children's safety and getting some basic needs taken care of by the kids, for the kids, like toileting and whatnot, and I didn't feel good about it. That we didn't, or that I didn't say something that addressed it then, but those are the kinds of things that I think you fund and figure it out later, because why, and I think there could be blowback on us. I'm more concerned about the safety of the kids and the needs getting done, but there's also possibly, if God forbid an incident happened, or you're looking at who's gonna be in charge or take ownership of it, and that's gonna be the region.
Yeah, I would agree, given that I think we're trying to understand more what the structure is gonna look like going forward. It makes sense to keep it as is until we all understand what makes the most sense. My question about extraordinary relief has to do with what would we do with that money? Typically, I know we can only use it, or my understanding is that we can only use it for special education costs. So if we weren't using that $110,000 for this, what would we use it for, just out of curiosity? Would we use it to prepay other special education expenses? Is that what we would do? Okay.
Yes, sorry, yes.
Yeah, my question is, we don't get extraordinary relief very often. I mean, we have gotten it in the past. And when we've gotten it in the past, I recall we really needed it. So we've got this money, but we don't really need it.
Well,
Or don't need it right now. I mean,
I think the first thing to acknowledge, and is that this could be true as well, that I don't know that all districts necessarily actively pursue application for extraordinary relief. It's not like it's a grant, but it is another layer of paperwork that has to be filed, and I'll certainly give attention to Matt for his, he's been on top of this for all of our districts, if you will, the 5. He's had this in mind, including this one. So I think oftentimes there's some that just don't pursue it. And I think that problem, in this respect, probably leads to an uncertain amount of funds the Department of Education can then disperse based upon how many people actually apply. But so we will use this funding, we certainly will, and prepaying expenses for related tuition costs will be front and center. So it will be used wisely and help offset additional costs that would be forthcoming, next fiscal year as well too.
Catherine.
Yeah, I just had a question about where are the bathrooms located in the are they in the preschool classrooms, or do they have to go to a separate bathroom?
They are in the classrooms themselves.
Excuse me, sorry?
They're in the bathroom, they're in the classrooms themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, although, when the students use the bathrooms, many of them need supervision. And many of the students, I believe, from my experience in the preschool, with kids with disabilities or with extraordinary needs, often need help with,
Living
clothing or dressing or diapering or whatever it is. And so, that needs an extra person, and if they, like, if that extra person's in taking care of kids in the bathroom, they're not in the classroom. And so, I think, I just applaud, Glenn and Dr. Brand for coming up with this solution, and I support it. And,
Anything else?
I'm sorry, yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I just think, I mean, it's an area that we know we've had challenges on and that there has been no oversight, I mean, on our end, I think some, on the elect as well. And so I think that this is a good solution going a year forward and lock it down and do what you gotta do. I also, I mean, you know, I hate to say it, but it's not under either of your leadership, but you know, my kids were involved in this program, yet the program has gone through drastic changes over the, I mean, when my kids were involved, there was one of these programs in each of the 4 elementary schools. And then it got truncated out of Wellfleet and went to Eastham, and it was combined in Eastham, that got truncated out of Eastham, and now I understand it's only use. And so, again, it just concerns me, you know, my kids had a great experience in that program, and I wish there had been oversight of it by a school committee of some type, just so we understood that transition, that's occurred, 'cause it never, I never understood why.
I think, if I may, Chair, I think, if I didn't say this last time, I'll certainly say this piece of governance, the oversight, the school committee authority or school committee's authority, that is also being actively explored. Started to engage Nancy and Peter as well on this. This is an important piece that I think has to be resolved. For the reasons that we all acknowledge, right, and I too, included. So that, just to know that, and then the second, just unrelated, but related to the program, we're in the final phases of, hiring a new director for the program. We're down to two finalists, semi-finalists who will be, moving into the next phase next week. So that's also been, you know, a bit of a challenge this year, and that's done the best he can to take that on, but we will hopefully have a permanent person to help, grow the program and assist us, as we move forward. So just wanted to share that. Thank you.
so do we need to vote on this, or is that? Yeah,
Okay, vote, can you,
I don't need a vote financially,
okay,
because I have to use the extraordinary relief this year. So
but you're using it,
I'm gonna prepay and then that'll change your budget for, you know, you'll have it available. We're gonna prepay other things, you'll have it available for FY27. You are in theory effectively changing the budget at, you know, in the cost center where the preschool is. You got 2 additional positions there. And getting from prepared to figure out how to vote at this.
so we don't have to vote on it.
And I know there was not a director's position this year for FY 26, but for FY 27, there will be. And was that in the budget then,
Yeah.
director's position?
That was. It's not.
And also, going back to what Tom was saying in terms of safety, I mean, not having that extra person in the building at all times made it a little bit more precarious too, in terms of supervision.
Okay, so, I would just say that if we don't need a vote, that if there are no objections to using this, 110,000, then, and I think it's worth it just to have us get a look. If you weren't looking at the preschool, something else, but I think that
We're moving in the right direction.
we are definitely moving in the right direction, yeah,
Thank you. Thanks.
okay,
Support.
all right,
Thank you.
whoops, I lost my agenda. OPEB trust fund, he's back.
Are we still beating this dog?
Can I just draw attention to the fact, this is our last meeting with Mr. Dunn.
We have a meeting in June.
You have a meeting in June, you have to direct.
Transition.
Oh.
There you go.
So OPEB trust, you know, you've established an OPEB trust, and I think you've got 4 million.
4+ million.
Yeah, in that account. It is with Rockland Trust, I believe, is where you have your funds invested. And you are a standalone investor as it relates to this. You have say over where the funds are invested to some degree through Rockland Trust. With that said, because you are standalone, your expenses are your expenses for investments are higher than they would be if you were part of a larger organization. The investment that you would get is probably better if you were part of a larger organization. So I would recommend that you explore the process for moving the existing funds to a new investment firm. That is part of a group that functions with municipalities that understands the risk that you wanna take with your investments and what risk you don't wanna take with your investments, recognizing that it's a long-term investment. You know, you're shooting to cover your pension benefits 20 years down the road. There are 2 large organizations that I know of in the state. One is PRIM, which is state-run. The other is PCOT, which is Plymouth County OPEB Trust. They represent Plymouth County municipalities, Barnstable County municipalities, and Norfolk County municipalities. I can tell you that I've been involved with them previously when I was at Upper Cape. I was on the board with PCOT. What impressed me in the 2 years that I was with them was the return on the investments. Were in the 10% range over that time, but more importantly, your expenses were at very low, 50 basis points. Which is much lower than most any that I've seen. So, you know, what I would suggest is that you reach out. By you, I mean either Glenn, myself, or that, reach out to representative from one or both of those organizations to come to present to the school committee so that you understand both of their strengths and potentially drawbacks to either one, and there are drawbacks certainly to anybody that you're using. The larger they are, the further you are from the decision-making process. And then make a decision on where you want to move your funds to, and maybe you decide you don't want to move your funds. That wouldn't be my suggestion, but you know, also find out from council what the process is. You know, to become a member of PCOT, definitely I understand requires a vote of the school committee, but to move your funds from one to the other, I'm not sure what that entails. So we would need to get legal counsel engaged in telling us what that process looks like.
Would the treasurer be involved in this process?
Not usually, I mean, they would be in simply making the transfer of funds, but in the decision-making process, no, it would be, you know, the person engaged with PCOT or PRIM would be your finance director. And that's what it was, you know, previously, your finance director was engaged with Rockland Trust. What decisions they were involved in, I don't know.
You have more? No, I'm sorry, I think why it sits and where it is and whatever, it's one of the reasons we had a treasurer who was very effective and was very conscious of making sure she was getting healed on money we had sitting in, so I think there was confidence at that point. And I don't think she moved around, I think it's always been in Rockland Trust. Yeah, the whole time we've had from the start to finish, it wasn't like it was,
No, not moving it from bank to bank, but moving it from fund to fund, as, is it going to be in healthcare, stocks, mutual funds, is it gonna be in S&P 500, where are you gonna put those in, where is it gonna be invested?
So we've gotten decent returns, so we were happy, I think we're in the 7%, we 10 is surprising, but we were getting in the 7% rate, and I think that's part of the reason why we were relatively happy with it at those periods of time, but I think what you're predicting, if it gets bigger, it makes sense to have a professional management rather than.
Well, just, I mean, this was 2 treasurers ago. I mean, we had a very, very good, very active treasurer who kept an eye on everything, and kept us very informed, and so I think we did feel confident, but the moving into a managed trust fund, I think, was actually the recommendation of,
The accountant.
the accountants, the auditor, because treasurers don't stay forever. Number one, it didn't get bigger. Number two, and that it was just probably a safer option for us, and something that we didn't have to be so concerned about. And we've been looking to do this for
2 years at least.
whatever. So I think this is great. I think it's a step in the right direction. So
Would you like one or two
yes,
to come for the June meeting?
yeah. I mean, I
If
think
they're
that would
available.
be great.
Okay.
And I thought you were gonna say, would you like me to call up that? That was my guess too.
Just dying.
Next time I'll wait a little bit longer before I jump in there. So. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, I think that would be, that would be great, to learn their
You
differences.
want 2 here, or those 2 that I mentioned?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I did a little looking online, but that's not gonna make a decision, so I think they're both.
Alright.
So that's good. Check that one off the list. And you can stay.
I see that.
It's a banner meeting.
Okay, finance. This is a money meeting.
This is a Bob meeting.
He wants a big send off.
These.
So you have several budget to actuals here, which you've seen before, you've seen it at the last meeting. So I don't wanna go through in great detail, but I wanna tell you what's different here and why you're seeing it again. The finance subcommittee had asked that we begin to look at seeing where we are bottom line. So we took a close look at encumbrances. We released those encumbrances that the invoices no longer are current or relevant. As you know, previously, including this year, we've had a habit of whatever's been budgeted was what we created as an encumbrance. And we were over encumberancing and had large surpluses at the end of the year, that created some challenges for us, especially with transitions. So we released several other encumbrances that were over encumbered, primarily places like educator salary, teacher salaries, electrical costs, fuel, those sorts of expenses that we knew, for example, one of the buildings, we're spending $9,000 a month on electricity, and we have $103,000 sitting as an encumbrance. So for the remaining 3 months, I know we need $27,000, so I don't need $103,000, so we released $70,000, leaving you with 33,000 in that account. As an example, we also, will be voting a little bit later to reclassify expenses to revenue, which then relieves some of the line items that were overspent, specifically out of district tuition, transportation, special ed transportation, collaborative, and then health insurance. So you see that, so you're gonna see a zero or positive balance in those accounts now, if you compare them to what they were last month when I presented to you. We also have started to draw down grant funds, so that you'll see that as revenue showing up on our balance sheet when you see the balance sheet at the end of this year. Drawing those down, that's gonna positively affect your E and D for FY 26, for this year's E and D moving forward. Because a lot of the FY 25 grants weren't drawn down prior to June 30th, prior to September 30th. And that's why you see that $400,000 difference from where we thought we would be, because those funds didn't hit our accounts until after September 30th. So you're gonna see that in the next, so we're trying to avoid that from happening again, so that your E&D doesn't have negative variances coming against it. So that's kind of what you can, this is very small, she's got it up here, so, we're on the middle school. The color coding here was just simply as an example, so you can see that there are positive balances that are salmon colored, and there are negative balances that are yellow. Simply saying that we're gonna be transferring funds from the positive balance accounts to the negative balance accounts. It's not something that you have to vote on unless we're moving it from something outside of the account structure that's there. So for example, if I was going to move teacher salaries out of here and into health insurance, you'd have to vote that. But to move it from teacher salaries to special ed salaries, we don't need your approval, but that's still instructional. So it's here to present the information to you. If you can just go down a little bit, Jen, I just want to see if there's anything significant to draw your attention to here. No, I don't see any large numbers or any notations. Keep going.
We do see your electrical here, 113, but
Keep going, so yeah, you've got electrical there. You can see an unencumbered $90,000, which brings you to a $32,000 balance in that account. Like I said, you've spent to this point, $89,000. We're 10 months into the year, so you're looking at about a $9,000 a month spend on electricity, so you've got 3 months worth sitting there for expenses that may still come due. So if we get an April, May, June bill, that should cover those. So that's an example of what you're seeing there, leaving you with that balance of $31,000. We go to the bottom line, and you can see that after all the positives and negatives and changes, releases of encumbrances, there's a balance of $480,000. We're gonna talk about what we're gonna do with the balances in each of the accounts in a little bit. Just presenting to you what the options are, not specifically what we're going to do.
So in essence, that was, we were over budgeted, or I'm sorry, we underspent this budget by 480,000
to this point,
to this point.
keeping in mind, we've still got half of May and we've got and all of June.
Yeah.
Um,
But you've attempted to encumber those future, the next couple months' expenses, so this is a guesstimate.
of what is likely to be surplus.
Thank you.
Okay, if you could go to the high school. So this is structured similarly, except they didn't do the positives and the negatives. If you can just keep going down until we see, stop there. You can see there's two unencumbrances there, one for contracted services in instructional library. Of $6,201 and then $11,698. For other instructional materials in the library. So those funds are now available in that account. Doesn't mean that I'm moving it elsewhere, it just means we unencumbered it, so there's funds available if they have the purchases they need to make. If you can continue going down, stop. Similarly, we unencumbered 99,724 and 1,674 in contracted services and other instruction services under the 2140 account. Continue going down. Stop there. You'll see that there is an electrical service, there's a reclassification of $337,915. So we received funds from Eversource. Part of it was the grant that we talked about earlier through Cape Light Compact. Those funds came into and were put into the operating accounts, into the operating budget. And in theory, they could stay there, and when we have money left over, it would just go to EMD. But in reality, where revenue, if I leave it there, have an increased budget larger than what you voted. So those funds, truthfully, instead of going here, should have gone into a revolving account. We didn't have a revolving account for electrical service, not at the high school or the middle school. So the same was happening in the middle school with your solar panels. And the revenue that comes in for that was just going into your budget and you were spending it against your expenses rather than putting it into revenue. So now we have an account going into revenue. I've taken out the funds from the operating budget. And you see, you still have $100,000 left in electrical service. You've spent 109, I think that is, maybe 189.
89.
Well, that's what's encumbered, excuse me.
Right.
So you still have $189,000 encumbered with $100,000 remaining. So you're in a good situation there, with your electrical service. Next one. So if you can continue to go down, you see that you have a balance of $93,319 in the high school. Okay. You'll see those numbers again. You could go to region only.
Not region shared,
We don't say the region shared for what? Purposefully. Keep making that big enough for me to see. Okay, I think I can see it well. All right. You can see there are a lot of positive balances here. Transportation, you can see it 0. We know what our bills are. That are still coming in addition to lease payments for the new buses that we have are also within those funds. If you can continue to scroll down. Okay, stop. So if you look at the employer share of health insurance, you see a reclassification of $359,978. You were overspent by that amount, last month. You are now at a zero balance because you appropriated school choice revenue to this account when you developed the budget. So we reclassified the school choice funds in that amount to bring that back to a zero balance. That's not all of the school choice money that you appropriated, against, as an offset against these expenses. There are some more reclassifications of school choice, and we're not done using all of that. You have about $1 million of school choice funds to spend, at this point. So if we then go down to building, you can stop there. If we go to employer share of retired health insurance, you can see another $149,224 that was reclassified out of school choice. Again, brings you to a zero balance, same explanation. So the combination of those two, you're at about a little over $500,000 so far of school choice. You've still got $500,000 available if we have other bills coming in on health insurance. If you continue to look down, you'll see tuition, non-public schools. There are two different reclassifications here, or changes here. You've got a reclassification of circuit breaker in the amount of $682,252 against tuition for non-public schools. So we were overspent by $682,000 is what we were overspent by. So that's what we've used of circuit breaker for tuition. We are also drawing down $212,000 of the IDEA special ed grant, which was appropriated or allocated to out of district tuition in the FY 26 grant. So that's being charged as an expense to the grant and taking out of the expense there. So you see that you still have $212,000, almost $213,000 sitting in that account now. With the combined IDEA and reclass of circuit breaker is $895,000. And then below that, special tuition in the collaborative. You see circuit breaker $39,612, which you were overspent there. That's now got you back to a zero balance. So that's giving you a surplus in region only of $1.5 million. So if we can go to the region share now. In the region share, you have several accounts that are overspent. So I'll explain to you what those accounts are, why they're overspent, and what we're going to do about that. So you can see that in the business and finance, your bottom line overspent by almost $92,000. $55,234 is overspent for substitute clerical business. We have a payroll person who has been consulting with us in support of the new payroll person while we transition, and so that's a $55,000 expense that was not budgeted for. And then you see $126,388 in contracted services for business. You have 3 finance people who are retired finance staff who are paid out of contracted services. And you have a remaining balance from the business manager's salary, who, when he left, of almost $80,000. So that will offset a portion of that $126,000. So between those two plus the you know, the 55, you see the almost $92,000. Contracted services legal, you're overspent simply because you under budgeted. And I can't tell you why that is. Contracted services, admin technology, you see that is overspent by $80,000. That's because we're carrying Tyler and SoftWrite, we did not budget for both of them, and that's why that's overspent. If you can keep going down. Your next overspent category, instructional technology leadership. Again, we budgeted based on an approved amount, and then the salaries that were later negotiated. Before previous superintendent left was different, than what was budgeted, so that's why you're seeing that shortage there. Well, you can see the salary food service coordinator and the food service bookkeeper, we budgeted 115,900 and 63,600. Both of those are paid out of the revenue from the programs, in food service, plus Cape Cod Tech, pays a portion, pays us for part of the salary. Firebirds and, I think those are the places that are revenue, the elementary cafeteria as well. We bill them for a portion of the salaries as well. So that's why you have those balances. Continue to go down, I think that's the significant differences, again, salaries and technology for the network officer. And the technology may be similar situation to what I described earlier. Continue going down. And you see separation costs, we never budget for separation costs. We can't predict, given the agreements that we have and the requirements. So we did have, staff that left unbudgeted, so that's why you're seeing that shortfall. So the region share has a shortfall of $68,220, and that will be covered from the region only surplus that we have simply through transfers, and that will have to be voted on by the school. We need to do so. And that'll come to you at the June 17th meeting, or possibly later, when we are closer to closing the books. Questions, comments?
Anybody have any questions for Bob? They're still
I think
in
up
awe,
next.
they're still in awe of your work.
Right.
Yes, you can keep going.
Right. You just. What's the next item on the agenda?
We got the approved budget, approved region combined.
Just says
No.
Surplus prepay.
Request.
You've got some prepay options and reclassification.
Did we do the surplus prepay options?
We can do that first.
That's as part of G.
Oh, it is part of G. Yeah. So these are your balances in the four accounts that you have in the region, the middle school, the high school, the region only, and the region shared. So you can see what's gonna happen to the region shared, negative balance is gonna transfer from the region only. Up at the middle school, you have that balance of 480,000. The technology budget for FY 27, we anticipated having this kind of a surplus, earlier in the budget process. The middle school had asked for $174,000 in their technology line for Chromebooks and smart board replacement. We reduced that by $100,000 anticipating that we'd be able to do this and use $100,000 of of money here to offset that reduction in the FY 27 budget. So because it's a 2,000 account, I can simply, make those purchases and then make transfers. You'll see the transfers in a budget to actual in June or later, when we close out the budget. So you'll see all of that. And the explanation will be because we purchased the technology. The 1.5 million that you see in the region only. This recommendation will be to prepay. We have the ability to prepay expenses for out-of-district tuition, collaborative tuitions, and special ed transportation, whether it's by the collaborative or other private van transportation. We're legally allowed to pay 3 months of bills. So we'll see what 3 months of bills look like for our students, and then request specific number of bills to offset these costs. There may very well, and again, the opportunity exists for the school committee to say, we'd like to have million of this $2 million surplus available to drop to E. That becomes your decision. So before we prepay too much, we would come to you with your thoughts on what you'd like to do. There are other things that can be prepaid. We can prepay some of the other technology purchases. We could prepay paper, the things that we buy in bulk, be pre-purchased. Again, I think your budget is sufficient for next year that we don't need to overdo prepayments. So that's where we sit for our options there. Doesn't require a vote or any recommendation at this time.
Oh. You have a question? Very controversial.
Okay, it's just hopefully a quick question. Tom, you mentioned that, our certification in E&D was a little less than what we had thought. Does that impact our E&D moving forward, and is that a place to, put some of these prepays to account for that?
I just ran a number here, Bob, please correct me. We, combination of what we already have certified left and the amount that we have here from the proposed prepays from the 2027 proposed balances, I come up with around $3,040,000 that potentially we could have in E&D. Now, what we need to decide is how much E&D we want to have. And that would determine our prepay. So if we say at the end of it, we want $2 million in E&D at the end of all of this, then we'd spend maybe $1 million on prepays or whatever. So that's kind of a decision moving forward we have to make, is where we want to be. Now, we can't be over
5% of your budget.
Yeah, and I think what the certified E&D was 4%, 4.1 or 4.2. So we have to decide as a group where we want to be, how much we want to have, and some things that could come into play. Is one of the bigger things that is for us to decide how much we want to use for the assessment next year's budget, and this is a decision down the road, but it determines the balance that we keep in prepaid. So do we want to continue to fund our budgets, lowering the assessment by $1 million a year, or do we want to go to 500,000 next year? That'll also determine how much we'll have in our E and D.
The only,
What did I miss, Bob?
keep in mind, you've got 2 million now, you committed 1 million of that.
Right,
Yeah.
that's why I say we have $1 million balance this year.
So, yes.
And I added that to the 2040.
So that brings you to, okay.
Yeah.
So that, this is not a decision we need to make tonight.
No,
No,
no.
but it's something to think about, and it's something we as a group have to, we've talked about it before. What do we wanna have in E and D? Is it a percentage, a dollar amount or whatever? And that's something that, it's not written in stone, it's got shape. So moving forward on, which would leave us with money for, emergencies at the middle school or whatever, but.
So I may be off, but in the past, I mean, I don't remember having a discussion about how much money we wanna have in the E and D. I think it's always, I mean, I'm sorry, maybe I'm not paying attention, but it seems like it's always been, we end up with an E and D dollar amount, then we get our, get it certified. Once it's certified, then we know what we have and what we can put towards, the assessments. But it seems like E and D is always,
It just had.
well, it didn't just happen, but it was from, it was over budgeting in essence. And so that it would, without a doubt, I mean, Giovanna's day and age, she over budgeted and therefore fluffed up E and D, and so we had funds to spend.
Yes.
So the question is this process we're in now different? And do we need to be looking at bulking up E and D in June? So that next June, we're certain that we've got enough money to be offsetting, next year's assessments.
Yeah, this is a bit of a paradigm shift. We're managing our future a little better. Before we were just, how much E and D do we have to offset our budget? And now we're saying, how much E and D do we need to survive? How much E and D do we need to have an emergency? How much E and D do we have to take care of middle school problems or anything that came up? Before we were running it pretty tight, and that was the communities. The communities, issues with it and say, you're using up all of your emergency funds for assessment. You guys have this out of whack. And we kind of do now we only have at the maximum $2.5 million a year to run our system, for emergencies or surplus to run our town. Where the other towns have anywhere from, in their free cash to 3.5 to 5, 6, 7 million to run theirs, plus a stabilization fund of a couple of $1 million, and we just don't have that. We're on our own. Our town only has $2.5 million maybe a year to function on, and we're in the position where we have all the rights of the town, with the exception of the ability to raise and appropriate funds. We can't tax.
Yeah,
Towns can.
to answer your question, from my perspective, Chris, it's a philosophical approach that, again, I want you to be aware of the processes and decisions. Do you have to make those decisions yourself, or could that be, left to the finance director? Absolutely. But it's your money, so you should be involved I feel like you should be involved in making that decision. So that's why I presented to you as to, what's available, and could I use all of this and spend it? Probably could, based on what our special ed costs are, and, there are some limits to how much I could spend.
And that would put us under budget next year, in essence, so it would free up funds at the end of next year.
It helps you yes, it helps you in the event, especially as it relates to special ed costs, that if you have students moving in all of a sudden. You know, it doesn't happen a lot at the high school, but all of a sudden you have a high need student that, you know, is out of the district, it's gonna cost a lot. But occasionally, it's possible, so that's your cushion by prepaying. You're providing yourself that opportunity. You're not in that situation this year, because we didn't prepay anything last year, because I didn't know where we were with the budget, when I came in. So, you know, given that, I think you're in a pretty good place. Again, not a decision we need to make now. We can begin to find out what those special ed costs are and come back to you with more accurate information, tell you how much of it we could spend if we did the full 3 months for every student, and then work backwards. Right?
Control of our destiny.
Nice place to be, I hate to say it like that.
Okay,
So,
last item.
okay, so you have a reclassification sheet here, and it's basically what I mentioned to you previously, about moving expense from the budget to these revenue accounts. And it's primarily circuit breaker, school choice, Cape contact revolving, and the fire village revolving. So you have the count number, you have the DESI function, you have a description of what it is, the dollar amount, what we're increasing expenses by within circuit breaker and the different revenue accounts, and then how much we're lowering the expense by in our budget. Thankfully, the total at the bottom matches. And this is something that has to be voted, and once they vote it, Judy, I'll need you to sign your page of that and hand it to me. So I would look for a motion to approve the reclassification of expenses from budgetary accounts to revolving accounts described.
So moved.
Second?
They're anxious to do that. I just want you to know, this is the first time that we have ever done this in my 9 years on the school committee.
It's, thank you.
Yes,
The new age.
yes, we have never approved a reclassification before.
Onward.
So it's very exciting. So it's been moved and seconded. That we approve the reclassification as presented. Catherine, any other discussion? Sorry. Catherine, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Maura?
Yes.
I vote yes, Katie.
Yes.
Tom?
Yes. Yeah.
Done. First time ever. Yay, us. Yeah. It's not that we haven't asked about it before. All right, I said we were gonna be out of here by 8:30. Almost. We got a warrant, Gary.
Very quick, this is the warrant for April that was signed during April. That's why you'll see some March dates in there at the beginning. But that's when we're signed, and that's how we've been doing it since the beginning, so. As we continue, there was one item in here, elementary prepayments, which I was anticipating would be a question from this committee of why do we have an elementary prepayment on the region? So I reached out to our finance department and had an answer from Paul Diamond that is, I cut and pasted right from this email right to the bottom explaining why we have elementary prepayments in our regional warrant. So I'm presenting this warrant for $4,690,901.83.
Okay, any questions? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Uh,
To accept the.
a second? A second?
Yeah, second.
All right. So moved and seconded. Any more discussion? Okay, Chris, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes. Yes.
Frank? 2 yeses. Tom?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Done. Okay, one more thing, declare surplus. There is a page in here for surplus.
Yep.
Yes, lots of surplus.
From the other Toll Hoffman in the district.
Oh, is that jealous?
We share each other's units.
Funny. All right, we have, Catherine, okay, but it's spelled differently.
It is.
Okay,
But
so we have a whole list from the middle school, if you want any of this, I suggest you put your name in.
The dumpster, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Any questions?
No.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the surplus, as presented by the middle school?
So.
second.
Then moved and seconded, more discussion. Thank you, good night.
Thank you.
Catherine, how do you vote?
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Yes.
I vote yes.
Yes.
Yes, done. Okay, reports and information.
266 pages of books.
Okay.
Are there any reports that we need to do at this time? Future agenda items, I'm sure we'll come up with one. Upcoming meeting dates, the 17th is our last meeting of the school year. The put down our retreat dates, 7:30 and 8:12. And that's it, number 9.
I move to adjourn.
Bye, everybody. Okay. 6 minutes.
It's pretty snaps.
5.5.
Very good.
Put that down in your report.
I will.